Father Cosmas Callis. I'm the Metropolis Youth Director and Young Adult Ministries Director. So basically, I get to tell young people what to do all day, I guess. And I'm very grateful to this community, to Father Michael, and to the Three High Arts community, and everyone who leads the Nika House, and all the OCF kids for welcoming me yesterday and today to be with you all, to visit you all, and to worship with you all. And it's really hard for me to read today's gospel lesson as we celebrate. This is the third Sunday of Great and Holy Lent already, the midpoint of Lent, and we think about the Holy Cross. And it's so hard for me not to think about the Holy Cross and also think about September 11th, 2001. Especially because the exaltation of the Holy Cross, which we celebrate on September 14th every year, is three days after 9/11. I don't want to make anyone here feel old, so I won't look at the ground for a minute to say, on September 11th, I was in 7th grade. Sorry. But I'll never forget that day, ever. I forget a lot of the other days, but I will never forget that day. And I was walking to my choir class with Mr. Nelson, and we came to the room and everyone was silent. And the class before our class hadn't left yet, and everyone was watching the TV. Now the TV wasn't a big flat screen, it was about this big, it was about this thick, and it was up in the corner of the wall, and everyone was staring and watching what had happened. And Mr. Nelson told us something I will never forget. He said to us, we're 7th graders, you will never forget this day, ever. And he was right. And I bring up 9/11 on this day of the cross because we all, young at heart, and everywhere in between, have pain in our lives, don't we? We have crosses. We feel difficulty in our life. And we do so in ways that no one might even know about. We bear crosses. We feel the pain of loved ones who are no longer here. We feel the pain, maybe some of us, of children who are in pain, or maybe they're no longer here. Maybe we weren't even blessed to have children. Maybe we've lost people in our lives. Maybe we have people who are estranged from us. Maybe we have people we've treated poorly. Maybe others have treated us poorly. Maybe we feel the pain and the cross of our sins. We feel pain. And on that day, 9/11/2001, our entire nation felt a great deal of pain. But thank God the story didn't end there. Because if you go to Ground Zero today, a huge, glorious, and beautiful tower stands, shining over the city. Even a small church that was there, St. Nicholas Church, is being rebuilt to shine as well. In our lives we feel pain, but the question remains, does the story end there? Does the story end there? Or do we, through the cross, find joy? As Christ said in the Gospel of Mark. That's the question we have to answer today. And as we walk through this midpoint of Lent for the rest of this Lenten season, we're given the cross today as something to look at in our pain, in our suffering, and in our struggles. And the question remains, why? Why do we have the cross as this symbol to look at today? Because before Christ, a cross would be like putting a gun as a symbol to look at, or a knife, or some type of tool or means of death. But paradoxically, the cross, this symbol of death, is plastered all over our churches. It's covering my vestments. It's on your icon screen. It's on the gospel stand there. It's covering the holy altar. Father Michael's vestments are literally only crosses, because the cross has been transformed into a symbol of life, light, and hope. And at this midpoint of Lent, when we as a nation maybe reflect on that day of 9/11, and we as people reflect on all these things that we have in our life that make us feel pain, which is so real and so personal to ourselves, we're given this sign of hope. Somehow this symbol of death is not covering our churches because of Christ's resurrection. Somehow this symbol of death is worn around our necks because of Christ's resurrection. Somehow this symbol of death is the focal point of our churches, just like this one. There's a beacon on top of every dome and every roof of Orthodox churches and many Christian churches because of Christ's resurrection. And so I ask you today to think about the cross. Think about it as a symbol even before Christ. You know, it said in this morning's oracle service, all these beautiful references of the cross. When Moses blessed the Red Sea, lifting his arms in a crosswise fashion, and blessed it with his staff. When Jonah, in the belly of the sea monster, raised his hands in his prayer, shaking himself like a cross. When the three holy youths were in the furnace fire, singing their song to the Lord with their arms raised like this, in the form of a cross. When Daniel in the den stands before the lion with his arms raised in prayer in the form of a cross. My brothers and sisters, today we have the opportunity, like them, to lift up ourselves in and through the cross. You know, one of the most powerful images of 9/11, arguably, is when our president at that time, George Bush, stood on a pile, a mountain of dust and dirt and broken buildings, probably even standing upon the death point of many, many people. Charged our country to have hope and to come together in unity. What a paradox. To stand upon the very point of a huge cross for our country and charge us with hope. This image, the image of all of these prefigurements of Christ in the Old Testament, and the image of the cross that we bear, challenges us to do exactly the same thing, which is to bear our crosses. This is the challenge that the church gives us today in Lent, specifically in the middle of great and holy Lent. And so I ask every one of you, beyond the challenges our country may face, or this city may face, or this parish may face, do you really take up your crosses? Or maybe the real question is, what is it that challenges you or makes you scared to pick up and bear your crosses? It's a big challenge, isn't it? Because the crosses seem to only get bigger and more difficult throughout our lives. But they are an opportunity for us to take up our crosses, Christ said, and follow Him. As the new youth director in our metropolis, many people have said to me and relayed to me maybe one of the biggest crosses the church, at least in the United States, faces. And they say to me, Father, bring back our youth. Bring back our young adults. Bring them back to the church. This is a cross our church faces. And it's a big one, and it's an important one. And so I ask you today to help me with that cross. Many people say that, the younger priests and the younger laity who care about the children, they take care of the youth. They almost treat us like a soccer coach or something. Oh, we'll drop the kids off with the father and he'll take care of them and make them holy, right? Absolutely not. I tell people the greatest youth director in a child's life is their family, is their parents, is their godparents, their grandparents, their older brothers and older sisters. You all are the greatest youth directors in this community. Every one of you. And so I challenge you as you take up your crosses in your personal life, as you think and reflect upon the crosses we faced in our country, think about this cross that we all in these four walls care about together, which is the cross that is the future of our church, what it might look like. And as you might wonder about that in fear, or maybe you say to the younger clergy and the younger lady to take care of it because you think to yourself, I don't know how to be a youth director. Know that you are. Every single one of you. And that all of us together must raise that cross, just like our country raised up the cross that was 9/11 and became stronger through it. We can become stronger through this cross as Orthodox Christians in the United States if we do it together. And so in closing, I ask you to do three important things to help raise up our next generation. All of us. Even you younger guys over here, you too, man. All right. The first thing is knowing that we cannot relate to others what we do not possess. If we expect our next generation to be God-loving, kingdom-oriented Orthodox Christians, well, we better be too. We better really be doing that to the best of our ability. Number one. Number two, we must find our kids and reach them where they are. And man, this community has the awesome opportunity of doing that. I went to the Nika house last night. It's so awesome. You are there where they are. Be what they are beyond physical, in a physical place as well. Be with them in their struggles. Be with them in the language they speak. I don't mean Greek and English. I mean the way they speak. Trying to understand how they're speaking and what they know and what they understand. And what their worldview is. Be with them where they are. And the third challenge I have to you, and this is probably the biggest one and the hardest one, is to listen to the next generation and what they have to say with honest, open, and abundant love. It is so tempting for us, especially when we have younger people we're trying to mentor, to tell them what they need to know. To tell them why their ideas might be wrong. To reorient them onto the right path. And I'm asking all of us to flip that over and to do the opposite. And to do the hard thing of listening to the next generation with open and abundant love. That doesn't mean we do whatever they say, but it communicates to them that we actually care about what they have to say. If we all of us, strive to do these three things, we will find that this cross we are bearing in our church will be transformed and resurrected just like Christ's cross was. And we'll be able to look back on that challenge just like we look back on these crosses, these symbols of death, literal symbols of murder. That's what a cross is. It's a tool to murder someone. Just as it was transformed, these challenges that we face in our church and in our personal lives will also be transformed. And so as we move forward through the next few weeks of Lent, may we take up our crosses. May we challenge ourselves to be the light that we want to see in the next generation. May we listen to them with open and abundant love and get on their level so that they may transform the crosses that even the next generation bears.